continue looking at some of the letters from written to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and these are pretty much on the subject of people who write about their kids at this particular junction of the sequence. And this is a letter to a professor of something or other who's in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And clearly he is a Russian emigre, as we'll see from the end of the letter. At any rate, he's concerned about his adolescent child who is doesn't seem to has discovered Eretz America and is not particularly interested in Jewish matters and Jewish studies, etc. And he writes to the Rebbe asking his advice as to what he should do, how he can persuade his son to want to become more engaged with Judaism. And the Rebbe gives him some very sagacious advice. He clearly has, despite the fact that the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself was a European, that he has no children himself, he hasn't grown up in America, but one way or another, he certainly has got a handle on American kids. And you see that from the response that he gives. As to what you can do to guide your son in the direction of Torah, you're no doubt aware that nowadays it's often easier for parents to influence adolescent children through the mediation of friends, rather than by attempting this directly themselves. In other words, sometimes it doesn't work if you talk to your kids. So children who begin to feel that they have come of age are inclined to shun parental advice because they fear that their parents still consider them immature or something of that sort. But they would be a deal more receptive to the same advice if it came from an objective source. And therefore it would be well if you could find some friends in Boston, Massachusetts, with whom to try to influence your son in the right direction. And this would be most effective if it were done in a way that would not make it obvious, that would not make it obvious that they are intervening at your request. There may be a chance to persuade him to go to a yeshiva, such as Yeshiva University, for example, with a dormitory where he would come under the influence of suitable peers. In other words, he's got a handle on American kids. They don't necessarily take it from their parents. Don't tell me what to do. You treat me like a child. I'm 14 years old or 15 years old or 16 years old. I know exactly what to do with my life. Haven't we all heard it before? This should come to no surprise to any parent of teenage children. Sometimes it's incredibly difficult to actually get through to them. But sometimes, suggests the Rebbe, it could come from another angle. And I must say, I've been on numerous occasions been asked by parents to talk to their children. And I find myself wondering, hang on a second, why should I be talking to them? Why can't they talk to them? After all, it's their kids. Talk to your kids. Well, in those situations where you've got unusual situations where parents and teenage children have a good and open and respectful relationship and open communication, parents should be talking to their kids. Lindy, by the way, always used to say about our teenage children, it's not what when you say something to them, about something which is they're doing wrong or whatever. So you don't say it once. You say it again and again and again and again and again until eventually you get through. But dealing with teenage kids is difficult, and communicating with them can be very difficult. So the Rebbe's made this suggestion that maybe there's a subtler way sometimes to do it, and that is through someone else, because they just see that person as being objective and not, somehow I just don't see them in the same light as their parents. So a piece of sagacious advice. I say this person's a Russian refugee because he goes on to speak about Russians who have come out of Russia, etc. But we'll leave that for another time. So